between the two of them. There's no justice. There is no independence. Crackhead, coked up, drug addict kids running all over the country, acting like princes. No prosecution for them. By the way, no prosecution for Hillary Clinton. Yeah, I recall somebody who actually mishandled government documents, who kept them in a water closet on an unsecure server that was hacked by our enemies, that not maybe was, guaranteed was. You want to talk about espionage? How about we talk about Joe Biden in a $5 million bribery scandal that burst forth onto the national consciousness yesterday? We had Lauren Boebert breaking news on our show yesterday talking about it. We're not going to talk about that anymore because those are wasted. That's spent ammunition firing into the blackness. Because these people, they calculated the time when Joe Biden's crimes would be made public, when they could no longer hold back the dam, and then they went after Trump on the exact same day. These villains. Oh, the damage that this weaponized, politicized DOJ has done to this country, the meddling in elections, the overt political prosecutions, what you have done to this American experiment, we're not America anymore. America's done. We're not America anymore. We could bring it back. You could try. But you see, the moment that Republicans get power, the audience, and I'm sure you are sitting there in the comment section right now being like, you have to do this now to Democrats. And you know what? You're right. You're right. The only way that this stops is you put heads on pikes. That's the only way. You go back and forth. I remember the night of Donald Trump's election, I was there in Manhattan, and I stood there and I watched the man come down at 2 a.m. and give his speech as the president-elect of the United States for the first time. I was there. I was physically there. It was like a spiritual experience. I came home the next day, and I sat with my wife, and I was like decompressing from it all. And I said, the pendulum is going to snap. I predict, like, the left is so angry, the pendulum has swung in our direction. When it swings back, it will snap. They'll break it so that there's never a pendulum ever again. And I predicted that on election night, 2016, the day after election night, 2016. I was physically there inside of the New York Manhattan Hilton where Donald Trump held his, in a very small room because Donald Trump wasn't planning on winning. He says so. Melania said so. All of his advisors said so, but they did. And that is what started this process. They can never allow that to happen again. So instead of leaving it up to chance, they're going scorched earth. We talked about that this week. This is the salt the MAGA earth campaign. Steve Bannon in jail, Mark Meadows pleading guilty, Donald Trump in prison. That's why we started with that clip of Levin. No one will ever be able to explain it better. It's good to sit back and be humble when you're in chairs like this. And I recognize that there are people that are wiser and smarter than you. And Mark Levin certainly is. And I honor and respect his knowledge. But ladies and gentlemen, that's what they're trying to do. That's the ultimate goal here. It's good to zoom out and say, what's the actual strategy? The strategy is eradicate MAGA entirely. That's been the strategy since January 6th. It's been the strategy since the best days of Donald Trump's administration, and we should get wise to it. Trump indicted on 7 charges, including violation of the Espionage Act. Wow. Espionage sounds like selling American policy to Ukraine for $5 million. But lo and behold, Donald Trump, Espionage Act. Curious that. Angrily proclaims he is innocent. He's headed to a Miami courthouse next Tuesday. It remains to be seen whether we'll go to Miami. We probably will. We'll see. Next Tuesday is going to be quite a day in Miami. Ladies and gentlemen, here's a summary of what they have charged Donald Trump with.
Former president of the United States charged 7 counts at least is our understanding, although we have not seen the document. The former president indicted on charges, we are understanding, at least according to some sources, of obstruction of justice, false statements. He has now been ordered to appear in a Miami courtroom on Tuesday at 3 p.m. At that point, he is expected to be officially arrested, booked, processed, and then appear before a judge, at which point the former president is expected to enter a not guilty plea, or a representative of him will do that for the judge.
So here we go again. Here we go again, ladies and gentlemen. Donald Trump, let's let him speak in his own words, shall we? Page 1. The corrupt Biden administration has informed my attorneys that I have been indicted over the boxes hoax. Joe Biden has over nearly 2,000 boxes at the University of Delaware, additional boxes in Chinatown, D.C., even more boxes at the University of Pennsylvania, documents strewn all over his garage floor where he parks a Corvette, fact check true, which are secured only by a garage door and paper that is paper thin and open much of the time, Donald Trump says. Classic. He's still entertaining, even in these times. It's a real superpower. I've been summoned to appear in federal courthouse in Miami. Now, this is what I find very interesting, is this is going to take place in Florida. You're going to get a bunch of Cubans in Miami. They're based Cubans in Miami that are going, and this is why we could probably have to go to Miami next week. There are based Cubans in Miami that know Fidel Castro. They physically know Fidel Castro. They know this. They're aware. They see these tactics. They've experienced this. Anybody who's lived in Eastern Europe, anybody who's lived in South America have experienced this. They're going to be repulsed at this. I believe it will backfire. I've never thought it would be possible to see such a thing happen to the president of the United States, who received far more votes than any sitting president in history, is currently leading by far of both candidates. I'm Democrat and Republican in the polls for 2024 election. I am an innocent man, Donald Trump says. And Donald Trump said so in a video. I am an innocent man, he posted. The Biden administration is corrupt. This is election interference, continuation of the greatest witch hunt of all time. Make America great again, Donald Trump in his own words.
Very sadly, we're a nation in decline, and yet they go after a popular president, a president that got more votes than any sitting president in the history of our country, by far, and did much better the second time in the election than the first. And they go after him on a boxes hoax, just like the Russia hoax and all of the others. This has been going on for 7 years. They can't stop because it's election interference at the highest level. There's never been anything like what's happened. I'm an innocent man. I'm an innocent person. They had the Mueller hoax, the Mueller report, and that came out. No collusion after 2.5 years. That was set up by Hillary Clinton and Democrats. But this is what they do. This is what they do so well. If they would devote their energies to honesty and integrity, it would be a lot better for our country. They could do a lot better. They could do a lot of great things.
So, ladies and gentlemen, you have Donald Trump there saying, wow, it sure would be nice for people to devote their energies, instead of coming after me, to devote them to, I don't know, fixing our border, our currency, our banks, our international position in the world. No country will respect us with these political persecution. In fact, even the most wild-eyed radical leftists don't respect our country any longer. The people who voted for Joe Biden, the people who like Joe Biden, are starting to break, bend, and snap. This clip is astonishing from News Nation. You might not have ever heard of them, but I'm actually pretty amazed that News Nation has done really great reporting. They're a startup cable news company. They're growing in viewership. They're trying to essentially be like CNN of the 90s and just present both sides. And there was a guy named Stephen A. Smith. I just want to show you like a little snapshot into what this is doing to the left here. Stephen A. Smith is not a logical man. He's not even the middle of the road leftist. I'll show you those people. He's like a wild-eyed radical, a racialized radical. Stephen A. Smith is an ESPN commentator who is like one of the most far lefties on CNN. He was on News Nation last night with Chris Cuomo, of course, not a Republican. And Chris Cuomo and him were having this conversation, and my jaw hit the floor. There's a lot of right-wingers and a lot of like Republicans I'm going to show you on the show, and we're going to welcome Trump's attorney. We're going to welcome Mike Davis on the show. But I'm going to show you the view from the left. I'm going to start by showing you the view from the left to show you how extreme this has gotten. Check out Stephen A. Smith, Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, Joe Biden supporter on TV last night being like, my God. So you're telling me that the only way that they can beat Trump is to put him in jail? That is wild. Watch.
Biden wasn't that popular of a candidate, at least before the primaries in South Carolina. Up until that point, he wasn't even in the game as far as a lot of people were concerned. And so because of that, when you look at it from that perspective, Chris, what it comes down to is you're going to have people sitting up there on his side and saying they can't beat him legitimately, and it's going to add it's going to add momentum to his argument that they're exhausting themselves with doing everything they can to prevent him from being the Republican nominee because they can't beat him. That's what they're going to say.
Well, that's his case.
Because they can't beat him. They'll do anything to stop him from being the Republican nominee. So let's go ahead and check in on that Republican field running against Donald Trump. What have people been saying to their great credit or shame? Ron DeSantis, the weaponization of federal law enforcement represents a mortal threat to free society. We have for years witnessed an uneven application of law depending upon political affiliation. Why so zealous in pursuing Trump, yet so passive in Hillary or Hunter, who both, by the way, have oogled classified documents and mishandled classified documents? The DeSantis administration will bring accountability to the DOJ, excise political bias, and end weaponization once and for all. This is getting good engagement. 8,000 retweets. So strong statement there, naming Trump. The strongest statement of the night came from Vivek Ramaswamy, who is also running as a Republican for president. We can't have a two-tier system of justice, one for Trump, one for Biden, one for Assange, one for Manning, one for BLM Antifa, one for peaceful protesters on January 6th. This is an affront to every citizen. We cannot devolve into a banana republic where the party in power uses police force to arrest its political opponents. Hypocritical for the DOJ to selectively persecute Trump and not Biden. There are also serious legal questions about the president's power to declassify documents and the potential legality over classification. That's for the courts to decide. We, the people, decide on who governs the nation. It would be much easier for me to win this election if Trump weren't in the race. But I stand for principle over politics. I commit to pardon Trump promptly and restore the rule of law in this country. So he brings up two great points there. Him and DeSantis both echo two very important points. And something that we must pause for just a moment on this busy show to talk about. This is the weaponization of a specific classification regime that has overclassified everything and that run the rules here. So the rules of classification are handled by the super state in Washington. It is its greatest weapon. They can't launch wars. They can't tax people, but they can use classification and who has their fingerprints on what documents to hurt you and to persecute you if they so choose, or to let you run free if you're Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden, or Hunter Biden, and the like. Barack Obama, for instance, or Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton kept classified documents in his sock drawer. Barack Obama kept them in a crate next to a McDonald's in Chicago. Joe Biden has them strewn all over his garage floor, as Donald Trump says. He's right. They don't go after them because they're part of the regime. They'll use these little rules, these little process crimes to shove Donald Trump into a wood chipper, into a meat grinder, because they control the little details, the digits and the decimals inside of these little U.S. codes. This is what Levin was was ranting about at the beginning of the show. The little minutia, these little like tweaks in the law, you can destroy anyone who's ever seen a classified document ever. By doing this, it's the assertion of control over the executive and over Congress. It's utterly unconstitutional. It's an abomination to our nation. And that is what Vivek and DeSantis, to their great credit, are going after here. Kevin McCarthy saying today is a dark day for the United States, unconscionable for a president to indict the leading candidate opposing him. Joe Biden kept classified documents for decades. I and every American believe in the rule of law. Stand with President Trump against this grave injustice. House Republicans will hold this brazen weaponization of power accountable. I stand with President Trump, says Byron Donalds. This is just going through some of the individuals. The House Judiciary is saying witch hunt, simple 2-letter tweet, and Lauren Boebert saying, ladies and gentlemen, they released this Trump indictment tonight because the walls are closing in on Biden. We've seen the evidence. Lauren Boebert was on our show talking about that evidence yesterday. But we're not going to talk about it today. There is, ladies and gentlemen, just far too much going on here. And it's just lost. They timed this indictment because they knew the walls were collapsing in on Joe Biden. That's exactly what happened. That is what Jim Trusty, who is Donald Trump's lawyer, said last night. This is the attorney that will be representing Donald Trump in this case in Miami. I am very enlivened that this will take place in Miami. Thank God. Jim Trusty, let's go.
Well, we don't have the actual indictment yet. I suppose they'll give that to us at some point between now and Tuesday afternoon. Maybe they're too embarrassed to give it to us early. I don't know. But it's a combination of theoretical charges. Again, we just have a summary. We don't have the indictment in front of us, but it looks like the Espionage Act, which is kind of laughable on its face, several types of obstruction and conspiracy, and then false statements. So they're kind of throwing everything in the kitchen sink up on the wall in an investigation that even in just recent days, we have brought to light criminal obstruction behavior by the investigators. You know, it's an amazing moment, Laura. I have not built a career attacking DOJ. I was a prosecutor for 27 years. I spent 17 years there. Loved it. But this is outrageous that they actually have prosecutors who literally, among other things, and we've categorized a number of abuses, literally told an attorney that he probably won't get his judgeship if he doesn't flip his guy against the president. You know, you don't have to be a lawyer to recognize there's something really wrong with that. One of their main investigators, one of their main prosecutors, I should say, said that in front of 5 others who kind of looked down at their shoes and didn't say anything, basically committing a federal crime at the Department of Justice to try to bring home cooperation from who they viewed as an important witness.
So that's Donald Trump's attorney saying that there is obstruction of justice going on within the Justice Department. They are acting as a criminal organization. You know that. They're trying to make Donald Trump a criminal. Jonathan Turley, one of our favorite political commentators, is saying that Donald Trump should absolutely run on pardoning himself.
But as with many of these cases, Jesse, it comes down to timing. They don't have a lot of runway before the presidential election. And the court's going to be in a tough position how to deal with this criminal case when you have the leading candidate for president who wants to be campaigning. Then there's the final issue here, which is going to get really wicked. And that is, Trump could run on pardoning himself. You know, for people that feel that this is bias, that this is part of a pattern, he could turn this on his opponents and actually run on his right to pardon himself. So if he's elected, even if he's convicted, he could pardon himself, or he can do so before a trial occurs.
Yeah, the good old pocket pardon. So Fox is hearing that it involves obstruction and.
Well, I mean, you're actually gonna have no other choice. The federal government pushed forward with this, and so they've left Donald Trump no other choice. It'll have to be a campaign issue, pardoning Trump. That will now have to be a campaign issue. It's already been a campaign issue, pardoning J6ers. One of the people who have joined our show this week to discuss these issues, even though we talked a lot more about Biden, because I believe that we need to pressure Biden. That's the goal. The goal of all this is to psyop us. That's it. You're living through the greatest, largest psyop in human history, this side of COVID. The greatest goal here is to psyop us. Don't pay attention to Joe Biden. None of that's real. Look, Donald Trump's the real criminal. The person who was on talking about that with us this week is legendary attorney Alan Dershowitz, who was hot under the collar last night.
I don't think we should be criminalizing these decisions to take either accidentally or deliberately material home. I believe that every single president in my lifetime, every single president has taken some classified material with him. And remember, a president doesn't have to cooperate with people he believes are trying to get him. You have to show that he crossed the line into criminal obstruction, that defendants are entitled to be tough and to play hardball and to say, look, I'm not cooperating. I'm pleading the 5th. I'm pleading the 4th. I'm pleading the 6th. I'm getting tough lawyers. We're going to fight this. You don't have to be Joe Biden and roll over and cooperate with the government. It is no crime to be tough and to resist. You have to show that there was a corrupt motive. And if President Trump believes he had declassified the material before he left the White House, then he had no obligation to turn them over to the archives. So I agree with Greg. This is a civil case that should have been resolved civilly. And this better pass a very high standard if we're going to accept the administration going after people who are running against them. You know how serious that is?
Yeah, it's really serious. In fact, Mark Levin says that it is the real insurrection.
Taken this case and he's undermining the country and he's interfering with a presidential election. And let me be clear, as Jarrett said, the Attorney General of the United States made this final decision. This is not the independent counsel statute. This is a special counsel appointed by the Attorney General under a Department of Justice regulation. This Attorney General, who pretends he's Helen Keller, he made the decision to indict the former president, and they made the decision to interfere in this election. You want to talk about an insurrection? This is an insurrection.
Man, Mark Levin is so good in these moments. Thank God for giving us Mark Levin. Pete Hegseth on Fox arguing that everyone should be in Miami next week, echoing Charlie Kirk, saying that all GOP candidates should show a unified face and head to Miami next week and to call out this weaponization of our Justice Department, the insane radicals running Biden's regime right now. Remember Biden campaigning on return to normalcy? Everything will be normal when I get into office. Nothing bad will happen. We'll all go back to like not having the government being an interfering force in our lives. What a con artist. What a scam. What a villain. Watch.
But as it pertains to the Republican primary, Republicans will rally around Donald Trump. I think every single Republican nominee should be down in Miami on Tuesday night, standing for justice in the country, saying, hey, I may be running for president. Mike Pence, Tim Scott, Nikki Haley, whoever, Ron DeSantis, but this is injustice. This should not stand. Now, I don't think they have a chance now, considering what Trump is up against. This will only strengthen him. But it's not about Trump. It's about our system.
Man alive. Hey, listen, Pete Hegseth going in hard on the paint. Pete Hegseth obviously endorsed Donald Trump. He's been a close friend of Donald Trump. What about people who don't endorse Donald Trump? What do they have to say? What about, like, let's say the mushy middle, independent journalists? What are they saying? Well, they're saying is that this is farcical. You head on over to News Nation, Chris Cuomo, Democrat, defender of his brother, Democrat governor, hater of Donald Trump, Chris Cuomo, and Matt Taibbi, who's an independent journalist who no one can impugn. Both of them saying, hot damn, man, we live inside of a third world banana republic. Again, let's take a vision into the middle left. I'm not talking about the deep state left, like the MSNBC people. Like, those are the deep state left, owned and operated by the people bringing these charges against Donald Trump. I'm talking about like the real left, like this normal people, normal Democrats living in the street, like going about their daily lives. This is an insight into them. And they're saying, my God, this president is a radical. This is extremist. This is dangerous. Watch.
So these concerns, everybody loves conspiracies these days. I'm not so sure that these investigations aren't done in a way that winds up intentionally or unintentionally helping the former president, to be honest, because every time there's a swing, it seems to expose the fact that they go after him with what seems to be at or below a level of anything that would be impressive to people reviewing the document. I think that to the majority, the optics are terrible. If you're swinging at somebody during an election and you don't have what we deem the goods. Now, what does that look like in this case? Do you think it comes down to, well, what are the documents he was keeping?
Well, again, I mean, I think if you are a person who grew up in a third world country, you would recognize this kind of thing as something that happens in a not entirely free society. So that's the optics of this are terrible. I mean, there's no way around it.
Man, are you listening to that? Again, not a Fox News clip. Again, not Donald Trump supporters, Donald Trump haters saying this is going to backfire. This is what happens in third world countries. Nothing about this is impressive. Nothing about these charges are impressive. Oh, you're saying that Donald Trump doesn't have a right to his own documents? Well, I have a document for you, jackasses. Look at this document. Here's a document showing the declassification of all Crossfire Hurricane docs that Donald Trump signed. This is real. This is the act. I'm going to show this every single show. This is the actual presidential memorandum declassifying these documents. They will never be able to get rid of it. They'll never be able to reclassify them. A president did it. That's it. The end. Donald Trump had these documents, and that's what they're going after. This is effectively a pocket pardon. This is Donald Trump, the giant orange middle finger saying no. And that's ultimately the issue here. The issue here is not any crime or criminality. The issue here is that Donald Trump was the giant orange middle finger, Cheeto dust, call it whatever you will.